Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing my super casual August wrap-up. I can't even explain to you how over this video I am. This is probably my third or fourth time trying to film my wrap-up. The first few times that I did it, I don't even think I got through the whole video, but it just wasn't going well, so I just ended up deleting all of the footage. I'm so over it. I think another one of the reasons why I'm having such a hard time filming this video is because I didn't have the best reading month in August. I only read 5 books, which is like actually a decent amount of books to read in a month, but I have been reading a lot more, so it was a little disappointing to only have read 5 books. And on top of that, the books that I read were not my favorite. So I honestly feel like wrap-ups, even if they consisted of just 1-star books, that wrap-up would be more interesting than a wrap-up that consisted of 3-star books, which is what this is going to be. But maybe that's just me and other people don't feel that way. Nonetheless, let's just jump into the first book that I finished in August, which I actually read most of in July, but it just took me so long to read it that I just finished it at the beginning of August, and that is Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is set during World War II in France, and we're following 2 sisters, and I really wanted to love this book. I mentioned this book so many times on my channel. I think it was in my 5-star prediction video, so I really wanted to love this, and I just didn't. I liked it. I thought it was okay. I honestly don't really know exactly what everybody else really loves about this book, and it might just be because I'm not the biggest historical fiction person, so maybe that's why I didn't get it. But I think I wanted this book to do for me what The Book Thief did for me, because even though, like, The Book Thief is kind of a slow story, like the plot line and everything, it's a little bit slow, it's a little boring at times, but I was so invested in those characters and I love those characters so much that I didn't care that it was a little bit slower, and I was happy to be in those slower parts for a longer period of time. Whereas with this book, I didn't feel very connected with the characters, I wasn't super invested in their story, and so that made an already kind of slow, boring plotline that much more slow and boring. So it just didn't work for me. That being said, there were elements of it that I did like, so that's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. At this point, it's been basically a month since I finished this book, so I don't really remember what those elements were that I liked, so we're just gonna move on. The next book that I read in August was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. In this book, we're following President Snow when he is 18, and he is the mentor for the female tribute of District 12 during the 10th Hunger Games. Did I already mention that? This was another 3-star book. So again, I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. And once again, this is, I think, also in my 5-star prediction video, so I really wanted to love this book because I am such a big fan of the original Hunger Games trilogy. But yeah, this book just, it had some issues, it had some things that I did like about it. I actually did a full reading vlog on this book. Actually, I think literally every single book in this wrap-up I filmed in a reading vlog, so if you want to check out those to get like my thoughts in real time, I'm sure my thoughts in those videos will make a lot more sense than in this one. But yeah, so the things that I did like about this book was I enjoyed seeing the evolution of the Hunger Games. For instance, it's not until this 10th Hunger Games that the idea of having sponsors for tributes or betting on tributes, those weren't implemented until this 10th Hunger Games. And even besides that, like, the Hunger Games in this book is so different to how we know it in the 74th and 75th Hunger Games. So I enjoyed seeing that evolution. I also really like that there's this something from the original trilogy gets a history in this book, and I really enjoyed seeing that unfold also. And the District 12 tribute, the female one, her name is Lucy Gray, and I super enjoyed her character, so I really liked her as well in this book. In fact, I kind of would have loved if this book would have been told from her perspective, but yeah, that's basically what I enjoyed about this book. What I didn't like about it was that it was just, in general, not the most interesting story. Like, I really thought, because it's like a kind of villain origin story, I was really hoping it would pack a punch, but it wasn't the most interesting story ever, and probably this book's biggest downfall is the fact that it is just way too long, so we're just dragging out something that already isn't that interesting. I think this book could have easily dropped like 200 pages. In my vlog, I said I wish she would have just made it a novella, but yeah, that's probably the biggest fault of this book, is that it's just way too long for something that isn't even that interesting. One thing I did like about it, though, was I know when it first came out that this book was about President Snow, I feel like a bunch of people had like a problem with it because I think they thought that she was going to give him some kind of redeemable origin story or just make him a more redeemable character. And what I liked about this book is that she didn't do that. Like, from the beginning of this book, he is like a bad person, and at the end of this book, he is a bad person. So I liked that it wasn't your typical villain origin story where they're like a good person and then something traumatic happens to them and it turns them into the evil person that we know them as. That didn't happen in this book, and I appreciated that. But it was just way too long and not the most interesting. Also, the ending was way too rushed. And that's that. Next book I picked up in August was My Sister, the Serial Killer. This is a book about two sisters. The younger sister is a serial killer, and she has just killed her third boyfriend, which I think you have to kill like 3 people in order to officially be considered a serial killer. And so she's the younger sister, and this book is told from the perspective of the older sister, who is literally there to clean up the mess every time her sister kills somebody. So this is another book that I really wanted to love because I super love the premise of this book. However, I just don't think it was executed to its best abilities. For instance, this book was shockingly boring for having serial killer in the title. I feel like this book is generally categorized as either a thriller or a mystery, and I didn't find it to have any thrillery elements to it. I felt like the entire time I was reading this book, I was waiting for like a climax in the story that never happened, or a twist in the story that never happened, and there was no like edge of my seat moments or suspenseful moments that you would expect from a thriller. But I also didn't consider it to be a mystery either because I don't really think there were any mystery elements to this book, really. I mean, like, we knew who the killer was, so I don't know. That being said, I still didn't like hate this book by any means. I just thought it was okay. I did obviously really like the premise of it, and I really enjoyed the writing, so I would definitely be interested in seeing what this author does in the future. Next book that I picked up in August was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian Flynn. I'm still not sure how to pronounce this author's name, but in this book we are following our main character called Camille, I believe is her name, and she is a journalist in Chicago, but she ends up going back to her hometown that she hasn't been to in quite a long time to investigate the murder of 2 young girls. And that's all I'm going to tell you because it's like a mystery thrillery kind of book. This book was unfortunately my least favorite book of August, which is really unfortunate because I actually really loved Gone Girl and The Grown Up by the same author, and my favorite thing about those books was her writing. Whereas in this book, my least favorite thing about this book was the writing. So that was just tragic. But I'm pretty sure this book came out before most, if not all, of her other books. So if anything, it just shows that she's really improved as a writer. So I think that's like a good thing in the long run. But yeah, I just really didn't like the writing in this book, and that really reflected in the fact that I really hated the characters because of the way that they were written. They were written in a way that made all of their interactions and their dialogue just feel really unnatural and just really odd and forced. So I really hated all of the characters in this book. Basically for that reason, I just found them all to be very unlikable, wasn't invested in their storylines at all. The only thing this book really had going for it was the plot, which I did predict less than halfway through the book. Granted, the book isn't that long, but still, I did predict the ending, and had the book just ended the way it initially was going to end, I probably would have given this 2 stars because I did think that it was like a relatively clever plot line. But then the like final twist happened, which I also predicted, and that final twist just made the whole thing seem very unrealistic in my opinion. So it just kind of ruined the whole book for me, and I ended up giving it 1.5 stars, which I'm pretty sure I said that I wasn't going to include star ratings in my wrap-ups anymore, and yet here we are. I've like given you a star rating for every single book that I've read. So that leads us to the final book that I read in August, which luckily we're ending on a high note because I gave this book 4.5 stars. I super enjoyed it, and that is The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This is a mystery book where we follow 3 characters. The first character we follow is Libby, and she has just turned 25 and she gets a letter informing her who her birth parents were and that she has also just inherited their estate. And then we're following another character whose name I forgot, which is not a fault of the book, it's a fault of my own memory. I think her name was Lucy, and she is a single mom with 2 kids and she is going through some rough stuff. And then we're following a third character whose name I really forgot. I think his name was Henry, but his chapters were the only chapters told in first person, and they were also set in the 80s, and it was basically telling about his life when he was a child growing up in the house that Libby has just inherited, and then their stories start to weave together as you read the book. So I really enjoyed this, obviously, if you didn't hear me already. I think it had that like classic mystery feeling to it, which I haven't read in quite a while. It kind of felt like a modern Agatha Christie book because you could just tell like how well this mystery was planned out and like how well all of the details were weaved together. And yeah, this is like one of those things where like if I rate a book 1 star, I feel like I've got so many things to say, but when I really like a book, like any thought that I have just leaves my mind except for me saying that I enjoyed it. So that's basically all you're getting from this review. I really enjoyed the characters also. They weren't like my all-time favorite characters, and obviously, as you saw, I forgot most of their names, but when I was reading it, I was totally invested in all of their stories, and I enjoyed reading from their perspectives. So the only reason I didn't give this a full 5 stars was because generally I don't usually give mysteries or thrillers 5 stars because they're just never quite on the same level as my 5-star reads, but also there were a couple of little elements of the ending that I thought were maybe just a little bit far-fetched, or maybe I didn't understand how they fully added together at the end, but for the most part I thought everything weaved together at the end really well, and I just really enjoyed it, like I said like 5 other times. So yeah, those are all of the books that I read in August. Hopefully this video wasn't super all over the place because my thoughts definitely were. So yeah, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. I'd love to discuss them with you in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!
You hear that, Samson?